What does it mean to think critically? A lesson from René Descartes. The other day, I came across an article about an apparent shift in hiring practices as more companies start prioritizing skills over education. According to the article, some hiring companies started to replace degree requirements with specific soft skills they look for. Critical thinking was among the top 3 desired skills that employers say candidates are most lacking in. As I was evaluating the content in the article, I realized that I only have an intuitive understanding of the term critical thinking, so I've dwelled on it for a while. At first sight, the term critical thinking is comprised of the words critical and thinking, basically to perform the act of thinking in an analytical or rational way to arrive at sound judgment. The ideal outcome would be achieving objectivity and balance in our thought process, so that we overcome the echo chamber of our emotions and prejudices that often keep us hostage in a limited view of reality, especially when we are under pressure or exposed to negative emotions. I find the topic of critical thinking quite rewarding because a person able to think this way can better navigate through life due to superior decision-making process. Further, he or she has a bottomless chest of intangible intellectual treasures to share with friends, family, and community. Who does not remember with a sense of deep respect a person in their life who is able to help them to resolve a conundrum? Sound judgment comes handy in various contexts, such as evaluating various choices you face every day, helping a friend, partner, or your child with well-thought-out advice, mulling over a piece of information you were presented with, implementing changes in current processes at your job, considering a response to a conflict with someone, examining a situation you experience at your job. Critical thinking is an essential skill, allowing us to respond to the environment in a way that brings maximum added value to our own life and the lives of the people we care about. Even though we cannot always achieve complete objectiveness, we arrive at sound judgments that have the weight of conscious and systematic approach to life. Let's step back and contemplate what kind of outcome manifests the act of thinking. This question reminds me of René Descartes' statement, "I am thinking, therefore I am." I am a bit ashamed to admit that if René Descartes were to observe me, he might conclude that I'm spending part of my life in a semi-existing state. Well, it is hard to live up to high principles all the time, but at least we can try to do it for some time, right? René Descartes made an interesting mental experiment as part of his quest to establish an axiom of life knowledge that exists regardless of any observation or interpretation. Yeah, these are the kind of entertainments that mathematicians in the 17th century occupied themselves with. In his book, Discourse on Method, he went on to the extreme in his assumption that it is possible that his physical body does not exist. It may just be an illusion in his mind. One by one, Descartes doubted every single thing he considered a rock-solid fact, until he came to the conclusion that in order to doubt, there must be someone doing the doubting. As such, he cannot deny his own existence. So, the act of doubting means that he is thinking. As long as he forms thoughts in his head, he must exist. I turned to René Descartes to gain more clarity on what represents the process of thinking, but I've realized that he wrote not simply about that. He was specifically discussing the process of critical thinking. At the beginning of the discourse, he states, "The power of judging correctly and of distinguishing the true from the false is naturally equal in all men." Descartes developed a systematic method of inquiry, often referred to as Cartesian doubt. We've all learned in school at least one outcome of his method, the coordinate system, which is essential for describing the location of objects in 2- or 3-dimensional space. Let me share 2 facts about Descartes' historical context to better understand the importance of his realization. René Descartes attended one of the most celebrated schools in Europe, in his own words, a Jesuit school whose founder, Saint Ignatius Loyola, stated in his spiritual exercises, "To be right in everything, we ought always to hold that the white which I see is black if the hierarchical church so decides it. To put it diplomatically, it does not sound like a place where diverse perspectives would flourish. Further, just 4 years before Descartes published Discourse on Method, in 1633, Galileo Galilei was found guilty of heresy by the Roman Catholic Inquisition in Italy. The reason? Galileo had advocated for the heliocentric model of the solar system, which challenged the geocentric model held by the Catholic Church. This conflict led to his trial and punishment. Galileo was forced to recant his support for the heliocentric model and spent the rest of his life under house arrest. René Descartes spent most of his teenage years in a Jesuit school and lived his life with constant reminders of the Catholic Inquisition's intolerance for science. It's fascinating that this man from the 17th century shared the same desire to train his mind to judge objectively as we do today. Further, the extent of his commitment to this quest is impressive. Descartes displayed the independent will and self-confidence to doubt his perceptions and, if necessary, to discard the supporting points he had placed within the framework of his beliefs. Yet, exactly this ability to open his mind to new possibilities without losing sense of direction allowed him to elevate his intuition in formal math training to the level of his achievements. I do believe that nowadays we all have prerequisites to employ a method enabling us to analyze each situation in a more critical and objective manner. An essential aspect of critical thinking is developing self-awareness to recognize situations when we rely on past thoughts or memorized conclusions provided by others to guide our actions, even when circumstances are changing. Perhaps reusing established conclusions is a habit we apply in our lives to adapt to the fast pace and variety of choices. Perhaps this habit is also a form of self-preservation from information overload and a desire to feel comfortable because every mental shift requires active effort and a certain degree of uneasiness. The path to critical thinking involves continuous doubt, careful evaluation, reflection, curiosity, and openness with the higher purpose of following objectivity as an underlying principle in our lives. The ability to question our interpretations requires self-confidence, ambition, and a desire to access our full mental faculty. In a way, it is like going back to our childhood when we've asked questions about our environment and ourselves out of an innate desire to better understand the world both around us and within us.